Hi, good evening. Welcome to Business Life. Coming up, International Monetary Fund advises central banks in sub-Saharan Africa, including Ghana, to uphold their independence to enhance policy credibility.
Hold their independence. As we know, policy credibility is vital in the fight to restore price stability. Policymakers must resist calls for premature interest rate cuts.
Also in this bulletin, economist Professor Lord Menon expresses confidence Ghana will pass the review program by the International Monetary Fund, which will send positive signal to investor community.
Anytime they are with the IMF, we see all these indicators being tamed, other than not being with the IMF. So the investor is going to look at all this, and that is what is going to help, boost the economy again, winning the heart of the investor community.
Plus, banks and insurance firms to demand integrity test certification approved by the Ghana Standards Authority before extending support for the construction of properties.
To set insurance institutions that there's a high-rise building, demand for a GS's test of integrity before you give insurance.
We are live with the Ghana Institution of Engineering on this latest move. We've got details of these and many others coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Straight to our very first story. The International Monetary Fund has advised central banks in sub-Saharan Africa, including Ghana, to uphold their independence to enhance policy credibility. Highlighting the challenges of economists in African economies, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, warned of the impact of embarking on premature policy rate cuts. She spoke at the ongoing 2024 IMF World Bank Spring meetings in Davos.
It is doubly important that central banks uphold their independence. As we know, policy credibility is vital in the fight to restore price stability. Where necessary, policymakers must resist calls for premature interest rate cuts, because premature easing can see new inflation surprises that may even necessitate a further bout of monetary tightening. And we have to recognize, on the other side, delaying too long could pour cold water on economic activity. Over the past couple of years, we at the Fund have been advocating for fiscal policy restraint, primarily to support central banks as they fight inflation. But now, a focus on fiscal policy is warranted on its own right. Why? Because fiscal buffers are exhausted and debt levels in most countries are simply too high. The cost of servicing debt is most painful in low-income countries. Their interest payments are set to average about 14% of government revenue, roughly double the level from 15 years ago. For most countries, the prospect of soft landing and strong labor markets mean there is no better time to act, to reach sustainable debt levels and build stronger buffers to cope with the shocks that will come in the future. And for a handful of countries already in that distress, restructuring may be a necessity. And there, the common framework that the G20 put together can help.
A while longer with the International Monetary Fund, because the staff is set to pass Ghana on the second program review. This may happen after the visiting team completes its 2-week engagement in the country today. George Yafe tells us more.
Joy Business understands that the IMF team is expected to announce that Ghana has broadly completed the second review under the fund program. This was after it assessed the country based on those fiscal and monetary data up to the end of December 2023. We understand that the fund is likely to indicate that the program is broadly on track, with some saying that Ghana may have secured a pass mark of 92%. Joy Business understands that there should be that final round of meeting with government officials this morning. However, we are not sure whether that could change the wording of the fund's statement on Ghana. But coming out of this engagement, the fund's major concern may be the forward-looking data about the economy. That is, will government be able to raise the needed revenue to support the economy going forward, suspending some taxes in the 2024 budget? And what about containing expenditure, especially in an election year? The IMF staff is expected to submit their report to the IMF board for approval in June this year, and that could lead to the release of some $360 million to Ghana.
Meanwhile, economist Professor Lord Mensah has expressed confidence Ghana will pass the review program by the International Monetary Fund, which will send positive signal to the investor community and even, to some extent, the performance of the cedi. According to him, the success of the review will boost the country's credibility in terms of ensuring fiscal prudence. Speaking to Joy Business, Professor Mensah maintained Ghana will secure the $630 million disbursement.
Forget about the quantums of monies that they are releasing into the economy. And I know very well that those monies will not do anything as far as the Ghanaian economy is concerned. But then the credibility in terms of control, in terms of making sure that we do the right thing, that is what the investor is going to look at. Apart from that, there's nothing else that the IMF program gives us. We know very well that if you trace back our history of economic indicators, anytime we are with the IMF, you will see some kind of, conservation in terms of our exchange rate, in terms of our inflation control, in terms of our, all other indicators, budget deficit to be specific. And that's what controls the borrowing and other things. And if you run across over the years, you will come to understand that, yes, historically, a typical Ghanaian economy, anytime they are with the IMF, we see all these indicators being tamed, other than not being with the IMF. So the investor is going to look at all this, and that is what is going to help, boost the economy again, winning the heart of the investor community.
And talking about the economy, we understand that Ghana's economy is beginning to show signs of recovery after 2 difficult years. That's according to Fitch Solutions. In its latest Sub-Saharan Africa macroeconomic update, the UK-based firm said that the country's economy will expand by 3.5% this year, contrary to the World Bank's 2.9%. Here is Mike Runinga, Senior Country Risk Analyst at Fitch Solutions.
A very difficult 2 years, I think, for Ghana's economy, with growth in 2023 having come in at a pretty muted 2.9%, as you can see on the left-hand side chart here. That said, I think there are some signs that Ghana's economy has finally started a recovery, with growth in the last quarter of 2023 having rebounded, coming in at 3.8%. And the uptick in growth was primarily driven by an improvement in the agricultural sector, as well as stronger activity in the services industry. So turning to 2024, so looking ahead, we forecast that the economy will expand by 3.5%. So still below the country's pre-pandemic trajectory, but markedly better compared to last year. And the primary driver of economic growth this year will be consumer spending, which will be supported by moderating inflation, as you can see on the right-hand side chart.
Let's now touch on our headline stories. Banks and insurance firms will soon be demanding building integrity test certification from the Ghana Standards Authority before extending support for the construction of such properties. This is part of the new arrangement to ensure that high-rise and public buildings conform to new safety standards. Professor Alex Dudu is Director General of the authority.
The Standards Authority worked with all the stakeholders, with the Ministry of Works and Housing, and so on and so forth, to develop the building code. But now the enforcement rests with who? Local authorities. Now the local authorities also had a point that they did not have the regulations Thankfully, in 2022, we have the building regulations, LI 2465, which sets out what should be done. Indeed, the building regulations refers a lot to the building code, which gives you the standard for your bathroom, for your toilets, for your kitchen, for high-rise buildings, low-rise buildings, earthquake-prone zones, and so on and so on and so forth. The enforcement has been variable. In fact, I would say the enforcement has been patchy. What is the Standards Authority doing? Starting from our own building, we have started structural integrity testing. Where we test a building or a product which doesn't meet the standard, we write that this building does not conform to the Ghana standard.
Are you doing that for public buildings? Because some would say that it's very, very important.
We are interested
Any
in
building
desirous of
that
doing it for public buildings.
Public people, are you doing that?
We are desirous of doing that.
Desirous is a different thing. Some will say, what is being done in that space?
The legal mandate for doing that, once again, rests with the local authorities. But the GSA, with our board, believe that we are duty bound to, as a means of improving standardization and standard uptake, do this test at cost to the GSA and put our mark on it, that this either conforms or does not conform. I hope you understand where we are going. In so doing, builders will be forced to come and test, and that will be good to our business.
And it's something that you're going to do because it helps a lot of buildings out there that are being priced in millions of dollars and they fail that structural integrity test.
We actually already have an advert. We sent it to all the banks and the insurance institutions that there's a high-rise building, demand for a GS's test of integrity before you give insurance.
And even credit as well.
Before you give credit, before you give a mortgage. One big university, in fact, maybe I should mention it as a way of praising them. UPSC, one of the new buildings, they have come to us to do a structural integrity test for the building before they proceed. We have done it. Obviously, I cannot discuss the results. And giving them the results, they would have to take it from there based on what the results say.
And I'd like to bring in the president of the Ghana Institution of Engineering, Engineer Kwabena Brimpong, for some analysis on this. Thanks so much, sir, for agreeing to speak to us on Business Live. I guess this is indication basically coming from the Ghana Standards Authority that banks and insurance firms will soon be demanding building integrity test certification from them before extending support for the construction of such properties. It's really long overdue, you would say. All right, so we shall connect pretty soon to Engineer Brimpong for some analysis on this move by the Ghana Standards Authority, saying that they would demand, banks going forward would demand some certification from them before extending some credit support to these construction firms. And we want to make sense out of that and engage the engineering institution for that matter. Pretty soon we'll be joined again by the president of the engineering, Dr. Kwabena Brimpong, for some analysis on that. Thanks so much, sir, and grateful you could join us back on stream. Now, this is the indication coming from the Standards Authority that banks and insurance firms will soon be demanding building integrity tests. And I'm asking that, really, is it long overdue?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And of course, the question that you posed gave me some wrong impression. But then hearing from what Professor Alex Dodu just said, it does not relate to before construction, which is a pre-construction or a pre-contract activity. And that wouldn't have fallen into the line of the Ghana Standards Authority. However, to demand integrity tests, I believe it is in the right direction. And I heard him say that they are going to collaborate. And if they are collaborating, then which institutions would they be collaborating with? The Engineering Council of Ghana, the licensed bodies. And when I say licensed bodies of the Institute of the Engineering Council, we are talking about the Ghana Institution of Engineering and the IET. We also have some other professionals within the built environment, skills. The built environment professionals, ecosystems who can also help in determining this kind of request. So I think it is in the right direction, because if you are going to insure something, you must know what you are insuring. Because if you go and
It appears Engineer Kwabena Bimpon's line has once again frozen, and of course, we shall visit that story as and when he joins us for some discussions on that. But let's move away from that and do this story quickly. Former Chief Executive Officer of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, Hayford Atakufi, is asking for further streamlining of Ghana's pension scheme to support its citizenry. According to him, the country's pension scheme lacks some adequacy and efficiency, hence the need for an urgent reassessment of the scheme. He spoke to Joy Business at the launch of his book titled Principles of Pension and Trusteeship in Ghana.
The book titled Principles of Pension and Trusteeship in Ghana explored the challenges and solution of pension scheme in the country. Mr. Atakrufi called for more education on pension schemes.
So the book is all about pension planning. A lot of people work throughout their lives and they do not really consciously plan towards their retirement. As we all know, it is inevitable that one day we're all going to retire. And therefore the book is a prompt to workers, to all stakeholders, that pension planning is very, very important. And it also talks about pensions generally, the perception of it, and the principles upon which pensions are based. They are based on the principle of trust, because you're going to leave your money with people for about 45 years. If you don't have trust in their ability and in their professionalism, you cannot do that. And therefore, the practitioners also need to make sure that the kind of trust that people have for them, they should also be transparent and follow the duty of care. And these are some of the things that the book talks about. The principles are right. Indeed, the three-tier pension system that we have in our country is one of the best, because it takes care of the basic social security, and it also talks about, takes care of occupational pension, plus a top-up. So indeed the concept is big, is good, but it is the understanding of it and also sometimes the adequacy of it. These are things that we all have to have conversations about.
The book also touched on some reforms in Ghana's pension scheme.
All right, so let's go back to our earlier story where I was telling you about the Ghana Standards Authority's directive saying that banks in no time soon will be demanding the certification from them before going ahead to advance some support to construction firms. And I have on the screen now is Engineer Dr. Kwabena Bimponn, who is the president of the Engineering Association, making some points on that. And earlier you were telling me it's a step in the right direction.
Yes. So I don't know whether you can hear me because my can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Please go ahead, I can.
Okay, great. So I was talking about the fact that it all depends on the professionals who will be undertaking this integrity testing, because integrity testing will be done on completed buildings. And I was making the point that for an insurance company who basically is going to carry the risk of a building that they are insuring, should anything happen, they are going to be responsible. So they would want to liaise with the appropriate bodies, including the built environment professionals, as well as the Engineering Council, Architects Registration Council, and all the people, because they are consultants whose jobs are within that space, and they can at least help. And of course, at the end of the day, we would also work with the Ghana Standards Authority in ensuring that the right standards are followed in accordance with building codes, or the Ghana Building Code and building regulations. So that's the point that I was making.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Kwabena Bimponn, for your time. You're still watching Business Live. We've got more for you after this break. Hello, welcome back to Business Live. Organizations and corporate institutions are being advised to invest in coaching services for their employees. With global revenue from coaching reaching $4.5 million, institutions in Ghana are being entreated to contribute to the development of the sector. President of the International Coaching Federation, Skofri Yeboah, says institutions need to invest in coaching and training of employees in order to improve their performance. He spoke at the launch of the International Coaching Federation Ghana chapter. Here's a report.
A report by Global Matrix indicates that corporate bodies globally are making 788% return on investment through investment in executive coaching, thereby contributing to the $4.5 billion revenue being generated in the sector. It is against this background that the International Coaching Federation Ghana chapter believes Ghana can increase its contribution towards the development of the sector. According to the president of the ICF Ghana chapter, Skofri Yeboah, corporate institutions must invest more into coaching sessions for employees to improve performance.
If you consider the neuroscience benefit of coaching, where two people sit, a professional and expert, through a thought-provoking exercise, invoke results, solutions, awareness, possibilities, potentials out of view. It goes to enhance your performance on everything you do. If an individual's performance is enhanced, it trickles down into a team. That is how come the team performance survey suggests that out of coaching, corporate bodies have earned 48% organizational performance. People have also garnered 788% of return on investment. This is how valuable coaching is to organizations that will consider it as an avenue to invest in.
He also called on other practitioners to join the International Coaching Federation in order to develop the sector.
I think the immediate thing is to support people who have interest in coaching or people who have already gone to other coaching schools to now have a sense of a community, because we have what we call continuous coaching education. If you don't belong to a coaching body, you cannot upgrade, because day in and day out, there are new researches, there are new statistics coming out, there are new surveys. If you don't belong to a body, you become like a blank knife. So it is one of the things we want to do for our coaches.
The chapter will in the coming days sign a memorandum of understanding with the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration to make coaching available to both students and lecturers.
And that's our part company here on Business Life with me, Pius Kojo-Baka. For more stories, do log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Great stories. Fitch Solutions predicts 3.5% growth rate for Ghana in 2024, says economy has begun recovering. Also on that portal, GSA and FDA harmonized certification processes to fast-track approvals for business. And we brought you that story on the marketplace here on the Joy News channel. Great stories. Do visit that portal and get yourselves updated. I am Pius Kojo-Baka. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.